Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Thursday, November the 6th, which makes this the news and events for Wednesday, November the 5th, day 1351 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you from this major European capital currently under siege. How do you do, Van? You're the first one in tonight, pal. Holy shit. Has hell frozen over? Hey, Neil Steven. Hey, Anthony Tommy Tom. Hey, Mad Mike. Hey, Steve-O. Hey, Bjorn. Hey, Nicola. Hey, Den. Hey, Bernard. Hey, Sarge. Andre, how you doing? Akron is here. Mag May. Hey, Flying Sunbeams. Chrissy Locks. Heart. Hey, Nightshade. Hey, Alice. Ciao, Missile. So, Missile says ciao, right? Which I guess in Italian is either hello or goodbye. Commonly associated with other words like ciao bella, ciao beautiful woman, ciao bello, ciao beautiful man, right? Funny thing today in the news. In Italy, a medieval tower, right? So, it's Italy, everything's 1,000 years old. They have a whole department of architectural preservation that does nothing but go out and try to keep these 1,000-year-old towers standing tall. Well, there was a tragic accident, a construction accident at one of the towers, and the tower collapsed. A Romanian worker was injured at the scene and later died in the hospital. Terrible tragedy. Our deepest sympathies go out to the family of the injured worker, or the dead worker. But why I bring this up is because in the Russian papers today, they very clearly blame Italy's support of Ukraine for the collapse of this tower. No joke. Hey, there's Arna, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Everybody thank Arna for us. So let me give you this quote here. Let me see here. So in Rome, we saw the tower collapse. The Russians are blaming Italy's support of Ukraine for this collapse. Now, dig it. The paper says that it is indicative of the Western decline. Western powers are so focused on destroying Russia that their own infrastructure is collapsing around them. Maria Zakharova said, quote, "As long as Italy spends all the taxpayer money in Ukraine, everything in Italy will collapse from the towers to the economy." I mean, Vladimir Lenin said that. So here's the thing, right? The worst part is the Russian people, who have nothing but the state media and mouthpieces like Maria Zakharova to listen to. Many of them are going to believe this nonsense. It's absolutely crazy nonsense, I agree. But many of the people inside Russia are going to believe this crazy nonsense. The problem is that Russia exports its crazy nonsense in disinformation campaigns to what Vladimir Lenin used to call the useful idiots in the West, right? The Russian propaganda machine, baby. Russia Today. There's a reason Russia Today is banned in every civilized country, because it does nothing but lie and spin these kinds of nonsense lies. Italy has a bigger economy than Russia. Exactly, Cyberdoc. Exactly. So it is amazing to me. I mean, it's unfathomable to me that anybody in the West could believe a lie like this, but we know they do. because there's useful idiots in the West that believe all kinds of things, right? How do you spot a useful idiot? Maybe they believe that Putin wants peace. That's a sure giveaway right there. Useful idiots think that this war was started because of NATO aggression. NATO is a defensive organization. There is no NATO aggression. This is nonsense. Useful idiots in the West believe that Stalin got a bad rap. That's a way to identify them, that's for sure. Or my favorite is probably these people believe that the Russians won World War II, but they don't believe they helped start it. If you believe that, then you may very well be a useful idiot for Russia. Hey, Flip, how you doing, buddy? Last night's overnight missile and drone attacks on Ukraine, the Russians were only able to scrape together 80 drones last night. Of those 80 drones, 61 were shot down for a 76% interception rate. Not bad. It's good shooting. That's good shooting. You get 3 out of 4. That's good shooting. It is worth commenting on the American elections yesterday, which for anyone, the short summary of the American elections yesterday is that Donald Trump did not win a single race. Not a single ballot measure, not a single candidate he supported won. It was all the other side, the opposition. That may be a good sign of things to come. However, there was a lot of confusion in a Senate hearing. A lot of confusion and a lot of frustration among Senate Republicans and Democrats about the shit show that is the Pentagon today. Everybody was complaining that they can't get any information out of the Pentagon since Pete Kegsbreth changed the rules about who could talk to Congress. Nobody can get anything out of the Pentagon right now. There was a great deal of frustration with Eldridge Colby. Eldridge Colby, who has twice now suspended Biden-era aid to Ukraine. Aid to Ukraine sanctioned, enacted by law of Congress, which they have no right to do, right? They have a job to do, and their job is to deliver the aid that's been allocated by Congress. And Colby is doing everything he can to hold it up. Now, I had suggested in these lives that, of course, Donald Trump wants the federal government closed, that it is his job as an agent of the Kremlin, or a Kremlin asset at the very least, to do everything he can to sideline the American federal system of government. And by God, he is certainly doing everything he can. I had suggested, but I could not demonstrate, that meant, very likely, I thought, that aid was being slow-walked to Ukraine once again. The testimony in this Senate confirmation hearing appears to validate that fact. Senators are frustrated that they cannot get answers out of the Pentagon about what aid is actually getting delivered to Ukraine. We are clearly that's got to be Dragon. Hold on a minute. Hello? Yeah, Americans. It wasn't. I hope I didn't just let a murderer into the building. I don't know what I did. Supposedly it's the neighbor. So anyway. What are you going to do? It's not Dragon. It's somebody from another apartment, he claims. So let's hope I did not let a murderer into the building. If I am shot dead, right, it's probably the Russians. It's probably not the Russians. They don't have time for me. It's probably that guy's... never mind. Okay, now, let's see here. So, look, the Senate is in disarray. They are frustrated, they are concerned, they are confused, and they are demanding answers, and they are not getting them. It's land shark. That's an old joke. Senator Tom Cotton, Republican from Arkansas, who I have nothing but contempt for, I want to tell you. This guy is a piece of shit. But today, he did call the Pentagon a pig pen and a mess. And that's good to see, because this guy is about as far right as any reasonable person could be. And if he's frustrated, that's a good sign. Now, yesterday, not only did we see Zelensky out on the front line visiting the troops in Pokrovsk, but we also heard from him that the Neptune missiles, the Flamingo missiles, the Rudda missiles, the Palanitsa drones are all being used in combat operations in Russia. We just don't know about it. Last Thursday, we saw Neptune missiles strike the power plant in Oriel. So that's between Moscow and Ukraine. Last night, overnight, we saw what appears to be a flamingo strike. A flamboyance of flamingos flew in the Moscow direction to strike the Oriel power plant. This idea that the Ukrainians are now going to turn the lights out in Moscow is being openly discussed between Zelensky, Syrskyi, and Budanov. And we saw comments from that trio today saying that they intend to plunge Western Russia and Central Russia into darkness. They're going to hit the electric power plants. They're going to hit the thermal power plants. Everything that Russia does to Ukraine, they are going to do back to Russia. And it looks like we're there, Drew. It looks like we're there. Now, very interesting stuff here on China. And well, let's start with the larger China-Russia relationship as reported in Nezavista Gazetia today. Our boy Steve Rosenberg is back on the job in Moscow, and the papers are out today. And some of the things he highlighted are really fascinating. The Russia-China relationship and what's happening there. All throughout this war, China has had Russia's back. That may well be changing. The Russian Prime Minister, Mishutin, is it Mushitin? Anyway, the Russian Prime Minister, right, visited China for trade talks. And the two parties confirmed very politely, very diplomatically, that they would take steps to boost trade between them, to attract a new investment into the two countries, and to develop new transport corridors for goods. However, if we look at the actual data, trade continues to decline between the two partners. In 2024, they hit a new record of $244 billion in trade. Now, that includes all the oil, which is the vast bulk of that $244 billion. For the first 9 months of 2025, we're seeing trade down 9.4% over last year to only 163.6 billion to date. Now look, if trade continues at this pace, the Russia-China trade will cap out at about $210 billion. Or, another way to look at that, remember, China is Russia's biggest trading partner. 34% of exports go to China. 36% of imports come from China for Russia. If this trade continues at this rate, they will end the year at about $210 billion, or to put it another way, $1 billion less than Walmart did last year. Right, like their big claim to fame, their big economic import-export business, their biggest deal, the China relationship, is $1 billion less a year than a single American retailer. I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. And here's the thing. They're not going to hit 211 billion. They're not going to hit it because what we also see is that in the first 9 months of this year, Chinese imports of Russian oil are down 21%. Overall trade is down 9%, but oil imports are down 21% year over year. And now, since the U.S. sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil were put in place, Russia has cut back an estimated 40 to 45%, almost in half, their Russian oil purchases. This is a death knell to the Russian economy. This is a death blow to Russia's financing of its illegal genocidal campaign in Ukraine. Right, Nightshade, that doesn't even count what's happening in Tuapse, which is huge, huge. Last week I reported that there was a strike, we believe a drone strike. Given the amount of damage, we don't think it's a missile. Or at least analysts I listen to don't think it's a missile. But there was a drone strike on the Tuapse Marine Oil Terminal, which is on the Black Sea coast, just across the other side of the sea on the Russia side. And at the time that it happened, it was reported that a single tugboat burned and a single oil tanker burned. Since then, the BBC and Moscow Times have both acquired satellite images and published analysis of what we can see in those satellite images. What we see is that the feeder pipes from the oil storage tanks to the docks are blown away. What we see is that the standards, right, where the pipeline infrastructure connects to the ships, are disconnected from the source. The berths themselves are damaged. And Nightshade, you were right. It wasn't just the one ship that burned. There was damage to all three of the oil tankers that were docked in port at the time. And now, of course, it has had to shut down. And that's a problem because they export out of that terminal 600,000 barrels of oil a day. 600,000, right? At the price cap, let's assume the low end, right? They're not getting $70 a barrel. They're getting $60 at the old price cap. 600,000 barrels a day, that's 3.6 million barrels a day, or dollars a day. That's 36 million every 10 days. That's 100 million every month, 1.2 billion a year. And that tap has just been shut off. Can you guess what the Ukrainians will do the very moment that the pipeline is fixed? what they're doing with the refineries, baby. It'll be marine oil terminal bingo next. Boom, baby, boom. So this is huge. This drop in revenues from China, the drop in revenues from refined oil products because of refineries that are offline, the drop in revenue from oil exports. And we haven't even gotten to the biggest economic boom, baby, yet. The Lukoil sanctions and the divestiture of all of their foreign assets. Now, I don't know if anybody can find one right now. But Lukoil had probably about $100 billion in foreign assets. 3,500 gas stations, petrol stations, oil fields in the west of Iraq, refineries in the Netherlands, Kazakhstan, and Bulgaria, probably altogether about $100 billion. They only have until November 21st to divest themselves of all of it, or the assets will be seized. So they cut a deal with a company out of Switzerland called Gunvor. Gunvor was founded by a good friend of Putin's with close ties to the Kremlin. But he sold his share in it. He's supposed to be out of there. It's supposed to be free of Russian ownership and interference. I don't know if anybody else is buying that. I'm not buying it. And this company has agreed to buy all of the Lukoil foreign assets for $22 billion. Probably about a fifth of what it's actually worth. The problem is, well, there's a couple of problems. There's the ties to Russia, which everybody is going, Will the sale be approved? The sale has to be approved to these people. And if the sale is approved, what happens to the money? How do they get it to the Lukoil people in Russia? Analysts are suggesting now that it would be in the EU's interest to freeze those assets. As soon as the deal is done, grab the $22 billion and don't let it flow back into Russia as a windfall profit, or not windfall profit, but a cash windfall to the Lukoil folks. So the whole deal is very up in the air. Now, the refinery businesses in Bulgaria and Kazakhstan are both crucial to the local economies of those two countries. The two refineries process and refine a good chunk of the refined oil products, gasoline, diesel, and aviation fuel, and fuel oil that much of the country uses. It is in those countries' interests to nationalize those assets. And it appears that both the government of Bulgaria and the government of Kazakhstan are in fact eyeing up those refineries for nationalization. They may lose those two refineries. Now, that goes beyond what is happening in the daily life of the business. As soon as sanctions were put on them, nobody wants to do business with them. This means that in Finland, for example, and Finland is not the only country where this is happening, banks that process payments on behalf of Lukoil gas stations have stopped paying those payments. They've stopped processing them through. So Lukoil stations, of the roughly 3,500 petrol stations that Lukoil owns around the world, many of them are shutting down as payments to them cease. And not only are the payment systems shutting down, choking Lukoil's cash streams and revenues, but customers are walking away from them. It's not just the Chinese that are sending the ships back and refusing to take delivery of Russian oil anymore, or of Lukoil oil anyway. The Iraqis, the Iraqi government, who buys much of the crude oil that is produced in the western Iraqi oil fields that belong to Lukoil. They buy it, they refine it, they sell the gasoline. Not anymore, they don't. The Iraqis have canceled all of their extant orders for oil from the western oil fields. What's Lukoil going to do with the oil? If they shut down the wells will stay shut down. They've got to pump it into storage facilities. They've got to put it onto ships. They got to move it, or else those properties are going to become worthless. We are in a situation where the value and the value of this company, because of Western sanctions, is circling a drain. And Lukoil and the Russian government and its war machine are going to be the ones that suffer from this thing. Oil is down today. It's going to keep going down, Drew. There's a glut on, and we're on the precipice of a global depression, very much brought on by Donald Trump and his tariff war, his insane breaking of the global supply chains. It's insanity, absolute insanity. But on the positive side, or on the plus side, or trying to find a silver lining here, the Ukrainians have held back from hitting oil production facilities and certainly crude export facilities inside Russia for 4 years of war, because they did not want to plunge their allies into a global recession triggered by $200 a barrel oil. Now, the Ukrainians are in the position, are you ready for this? Follow this thinking. Back in 2018, before COVID, does anybody remember how OPEC and Russia were overproducing and the price of oil was falling? Why were they doing that? They were doing it in an effort to bankrupt the American shale oil and gas industry. Because American shale oil and gas is very susceptible to price fluctuations. It's a very dirty business. It's a very expensive business. They've got a cost per barrel, the American shale oil industry, of between $52 and $55 a barrel. Very dirty, very expensive. That means that if oil falls to $50 a barrel, they're all out of business, right? The only thing that saved them during COVID, when the bottom fell out, was the $5 trillion that Congress poured into the economy. It was the only thing that saved them. Now, with oil at $66 a barrel, they're still profitable. But if OPEC keeps upping production, and if the Russian oil stays on the market, and the global economy continues to slow, which it shows every sign of doing, American shale oil business is going to go bankrupt. The Ukrainians, now dig this, it is my opinion that the Ukrainians are now in the enviable position of being able to destroy Russian production infrastructure, take the Russian oil off the market, drive stabilize prices from how they're falling right now and save the American shale oil business. I mean, that is one of the ways that this thing could play out. Ukraine could destroy Russia's energy sector and in so doing save the American business. So we'll see. Okay, now some people have asked about Pokrovsk because Pokrovsk is on everybody's mind. And I have a long update here. I want to stress to everybody, we don't know what's going to happen in Pokrovsk. We don't know really why Zelensky, Budanov, and Syrskyi were all there yesterday. We do not know if they are trying to organize a withdrawal under fire or if they are launching a major counteroffensive to try to deny the Russians Pokrovsk. We do not know. This is what we know. So these are the facts on the ground that I have been able to glean. The Ukrainian armed forces are conducting multiple counteroffensives. That much is clear. They are working to secure supply lines and ensure that wounded can be evacuated, supplies can be brought in, and reinforcements can be brought into the area safely. North, so if Pokrovsk is my nose, right, north, east of Pokrovsk is where we'll start, and then we'll go around the dial this way. So in Radinsky, north of Pokrovsk, Russia claims they have taken the town. But then they release video of themselves attacking the town with artillery and drones. So either they are bombing their own people or their claims of holding the town are optimistic fiction at best. It appears to be the latter, optimistic fiction. Ukrainian sabotage groups are confirmed to be operating behind the lines there in Radinsky. They took out a communications hub, 13 soldiers, they grabbed all the equipment. 13 Russians were cleared in that operation. Clearing operations continue on the north of the town, securing the main road from Radinsky out of Pokrovsk. In the northeast side, there's heavy close quarters fighting, and this is true on the southeast side or southwest side as well. Heavy close quarters fighting, literally house-to-house clearing operations are underway. Russian convoys are being hit by Ukrainian drones. Vehicles are disabled, the infantry dismounts, and then the drones pick off the infantry. There is lots of video of that happening. But the Ukrainians appear to be outnumbered about 8-1. Not in the town, but rather the forces arrayed around the town that are coming in. Ukrainian and Russian sources describe how troops how troops are being pulled from other regions, hollowing out and slowing the pace of fighting all up and down the front. Now, these reports are mostly about the movements of Russian troops. So I think I mentioned the other night that the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade, a bunch of Russian Marines, have once again been reduced to combat ineffective status and retired from the battlefield. Again, this has happened to them several times this year. They are being replaced by units that are being drawn from Kursk, from Belgorod, from Donetsk, from Sumy, and from Kherson. maybe Crimea as well. Therefore, all up and down the line, wherever these units are being pulled from, the operational pace cannot continue. They don't have enough men or machines to maintain the pace of attack. And so fighting is slowing all up and down the line. Of the 139 attacks by Russians yesterday along the front line, something like 80 of them were in Pokrovsk alone. Not only is 139 attacks in a day a great reduction in Russian offensive efforts, but the fact that 80 of them happened around Pokrovsk sends a signal that apparently the only thing that really matters to the Russians right now is Pokrovsk. And it would appear that the Ukrainians are taking advantage, I don't want to say taking advantage, are responding to that pressure and costing the Russians dearly. That much is true. Now, the situation, I want to stress again, nobody knows, as far as I know, nobody knows what's really going on, except that the situation is fluid, violent, and a difficult situation for everyone. But the Ukrainians do seem to be holding their ground and turning the battlefield into a graveyard of Russian men and equipment. The situation is confused and chaotic. Zelensky said today that there are only 300 Russian troops in the city. Now that's a big change from 0 6 weeks ago to 200 10 days ago to 300 today. It appears that the Russians have opened some kind of safe corridor and new troops keep coming in. The battle, I think, it was reporting from Ukraine. It was reporting from Ukraine who said that the battle showcases the manpower pressures and limitations of both sides. The GUR, the Ukrainian Military Intelligence Directorate, is trying to open and secure ground lines of communication to protect the rear, allow the transport of wounded out of the area, and allow reinforcements to come in numbers. They're always hitting Crimea, Drew. They're always hitting Rostov every day. Now, anybody who follows this channel has heard me talk about the Joint Expeditionary Force, right? Those are the guys, it's all the Nordic countries, all the Baltic countries, the Netherlands, and the UK. I think that's everybody. And they're the ones who started Nordic Warden, which was the patrolling operations in the Baltic to stop the Russians from sabotaging undersea infrastructure. And in fact, since Nordic Warden and then its successor, Baltic Sentry, launched by NATO, since those operations have been in place, you will notice the Russians have not fucked with any undersea cables. That's just a fact. Well, Jeff, in its meeting today, has invited Ukraine to join in what they call an enhanced partnership. Now, look, this is not membership in NATO. This is not membership in the EU. It's really, frankly, quite unclear what membership in this organization, JATO, exactly. You heard that interview, right? It's unclear what this organization will be to Ukraine. However, it is a movement in a direction to integrate Ukraine into European military operations. And that, in my mind, is a movement in the right direction. And where this story comes from, as BIP correctly identifies, is from Ukraine the Latest, the podcast, from The Telegraph, which you guys know I recommend above all others. Oh, only me. Oh, except me. No, I'm just kidding. If it's a choice between me or them, listen to them. They're actual journalists. I'm just an asshole with an iPhone. Germany is to allocate an additional 3 billion euros for the next fiscal year, in addition to the 8.5 billion euros that they have already committed. It's a huge commitment from the Germans. Any German out there should be proud. Kyiv prosecutor's office has opened an investigation into the murder of 2 Ukrainian civilians who were walking down the street with their dog under a white flag when Ukrainian drone operators mercilessly, callously, cowardly, cruelly murdered them in the street. And then took the video and posted it to Telegram. Because you know, when you're doing war crimes, what you want to do is publish the video on the internet. Now, turning to the Russian papers, again, thanks to our friend Steve Rosenberg, Izvestia is reporting that Putin presented awards to the designers of the Berezhnik cruise missile. This is the nuclear-powered missile. And the Poseidon underwater drone, which is said to be a tsunami-inducing drone. Now dig this. The Russians also, again, Izvestia also reported that Russia has plans for serial production of Oreshnik and to deploy, serial production of Oreshnik and to deploy more Sarmat missiles. Putin said, are you ready for this? Putin said, we are not threatening anyone with these moves. Really? Did I say Ukrainian drone operators? I apologize. It was clearly Russian drone operators who murdered the Ukrainians. Clearly. My apologies, everybody. We're not threatening anyone, says Putin. Really? Because Komsomolskaya Pravda wrote one Poseidon would be enough to send that cocky little island to the bottom of the sea, referring to England, or pardon me, Great Britain and Northern Ireland. That cocky little island to the bottom of the sea. You're not threatening anybody. What is that, a friendly hello? Give me a minute, give me a break. Rossiyskaya Gazetia. That's the Roman Tower story. We talked about that. Nezavizista Gazetia reports that the Russian Prime Minister... we talked about that. We did that one already. Finally, in Izvestia, they are reporting 36% of corporate earnings are strictly for servicing debt. Russia is drowning in a debt crisis from which there is no escape if you are disconnected from the global markets, as Russia is. If you are stuck with what the Yale School of Management has decided is a dead currency for international business. Izvestia writes that these overweening debt servicing and fees increase the risk of bankruptcy and defaults, accelerates inflation, and slows economic growth. All correct. The debt burden is high, particularly in the construction and automotive industry. Falling profits amidst higher import fees, taxes, interest rates, lower consumer demand. Russian papers do report the economic problems that Russia has, but nowhere does it mention the cause of these to be the special military operation. Nowhere does it tie, even though it will talk about sanctions and sanctions evasion. Nowhere does it say that these sanctions are the direct result of Russia's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. They don't go that far, and they never call it a war. It's the special military operation. Even now, 4 years in, even now, with 1 million plus casualties, even now, with annual conscription drives, 365 a year, even now, activating reservists to protect oil infrastructure. It's not a war. It's the 3-day special military operation. Now in its 1,351st day. All right, that's it for me. That's the top line stuff, guys. Hey, Truthful. Hey, Akron. It is unreal, man. It's craziness. It's insanity. Okay, I want to thank Arna, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Thank you, Arna. I don't have any other sponsors the rest of the week. I could really use some help. If anybody can sponsor a live, the PayPal's in the description. Thank you very much. Big thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, Lars, who has the Discord server, and of course, to the best moderators on the Tickety Talk, Maddie, Feisty, Jay, Travis, and Pete. Thank you, guys. So questions, comments, points of observation. Lukoil refinery in Volgograd is on fire again? That's got to be the 4th time it's been hit since August 3rd, right? What was it? It was August 3rd. I want to say September 5th, October 20th, Volgograd, and then just again last week. Maybe, Andy, shoot me a DM, would you, pal? It's just a flare-off. Now, you notice those hits on Volgograd, they're all about a month apart, right? It looks like the Russians are letting them, or the Ukrainians are letting the Russians get close to finishing the repairs and then hitting them again. It's a good strategy. It's a very good strategy. Guys, I know I'm late on the Diana Yana project. I have a very busy week, and I'm trying to get to it. I'm going to make some progress on it tomorrow. Please tune into the Patreon for that. If you're not a Patreon member, I want to thank Flip, who joined the Patreon today. Thank you, Flip. I really appreciate it. Number 42, if you want to count it from the subscription drive we did this week. The shadows hit Russia, right? They took the Bryansk chemical plant offline last week. Storm Shadow did. Hey, Pugga Mahone. Patriot batteries from the EU. 2 new ones arrived this week from Germany. It's been reported that 2 Patriot systems arrived from Germany. Now, we don't know where they got them. Personally, I think that they're the Israeli ones. I think that the Israeli ones all got sent back for servicing to the U.S. They retired 11 of them. And then as they're getting refurbed and updated, they're getting funneled to Ukraine through Germany, is what it looks like. Thanks, Chef Deb. Thank you, Drew. What else is going on, guys? Thanks for liking the live, Michael Boucher. Nice to see you, pal. Is Ukraine still holding its own? Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Bird in the hand is better than two in the refinery. Will they hit the 1.3 million mark by the fourth invasion anniversary? Huh. Where are we at now? Like 1.13? So that would be another 170,000? I don't know, man. The numbers for this year are just outrageous. I forget what the British MOD assessment was, but the British Ministry of Defense just did a casualty assessment on the Russians, and it was a crazy number. Can somebody look it up? Will Putin sue for peace if it gets Donetsk? No. That is the greatest lie that Vladimir Putin ever convinced anyone of, that he can be appeased. He can't be. And he'll never take Donetsk. At the current rate of advance, it will take him another 4 years and another 2 million lives. Arn here is saying that, according to Zelensky, they've used 9 flamingos so far. Where'd you see that, pal? Roy Daniels, I'm not sure which Russian railroad explosion you're talking about. There have been a bunch lately. Thank you, Bernard. It is most definitely a meat grinder, Drew. Math is not my area, says Little Red. Hello, Romania. Hey, Romania. Anything in the papers today about a fire on the Romanian side of the Danube following yesterday's drone strike on the port of Ishmael? Oh, I'm holding up. Hey, Louise. Nice to see you, dollface. Source, Ukraine Matters. He's usually pretty good. Did you get the truck? I don't... Did they get the truck? I don't know what you're talking about. The mobile artillery truck. Oh, for the guys over here? No. No, that's very disappointing. We missed, I think, 2 chances, too. It's very disappointing. So Marianne looks up something here. This looks like, this could be, this is the British military... this is the British Ministry of Defense estimate that deaths are between 220 and 318,000. But if I'm not mistaken, they estimated the casualties for this year, that's POWMIA, to be like 324,000 for this year. Why aren't the Ukrainians using planes in Pokrovsk to pound Russian forces? Well, I don't know that they're not. We've seen the use of glide bombs, which they're aerial launched. You would think that we'd see more use of the AASM hammer. It's a good question, Ivan, and I don't have a good answer. If I had to guess, I'd say probably because they're afraid of Russian air defense. Right, that's why you wouldn't fly there, because that's what you're afraid of. Drew, I don't really want to get into the raising money business. Mr. Blaba there says 350K just in 2025. Now that's not killed in action, right? That's all up killed in action, wounded in action, missing in action, and taken prisoner. That sounds about right to me. Yeah, guys, I really don't do fundraising, right? I've stayed out of it because it is so rife with corruption, with just absolute theft. It's unbelievable. I believe that I provide a service. Being here in Ukraine on the ground, I can translate for my American friends and Western friends and Far Eastern friends, especially my new buddy in Nepal. I love having a buddy in Nepal. That's awesome. Through the lens of a democratic understanding of the world, what is really happening here? Good night, Travis. Thanks, man. Hey, everybody, congratulate Travis. He just broke 20,000 followers on TikTok and will shortly break 20,000 on Instagram. If you don't follow him on the Insta, maybe give him a follow over there, too. So, guys, when you sponsor a live, when you join the Patreon, what you are doing is making it possible for me to be here. That's what you're doing. And I appreciate it. I literally could not do this without you. And I could really use a couple sponsors for Thursday and Friday, that's for sure. Okay, it is 12:58 here. We just have 2 minutes left. So big thanks to Arna, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Thank you, Arn. And big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peters Peeps group, and of course, to the moderator team, best moderators on the Tickety Talk, Maddie, Feisty, Jay, Travis, and Pete. So thanks, guys. You focus on recovery, Michael. I'm not sure how you're doing after that surgery. I'm doing okay, man. I'm a little broke this week because of the rent, and the electric bill is like, the electric bill alone this month is $150, and that's very unusual. I mean, usually all my bills together are about $150. But with the Russians hitting energy infrastructure, we have to buy electricity from Hungary and Slovakia and Poland, and that is expensive. And then, of course, we had no heat this month, right? The heat only just came on Monday. And so I was doing things like running the electric heater all month, that kind of thing. Night, Clive. It's gotten when I say that the electric bill has trebled, that is not an exaggeration since I first moved in. It has trebled. And it's because the Russians keep pounding the Ukrainian infrastructure. This country has 3 working nuclear power plants. Electricity should not be expensive. But when the Russians are blowing up the transmission lines every other day, it's a problem. Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, no, the electric bill really gave me a little heart attack this month. Yeah, but you're in the United States, Bip, you know. And I don't know, you seem like the kind of guy that has 2,400 square feet and a man cave. When I first moved into this apartment, all up, my bills were about 2,000 hryvnia. That's about $50. So when I first moved in, the bills averaged between 2,000 and 3,000 hryvnia a month in the summer. In the winter, it was more like 4,000 to 5,000. So at the high end, 125 a month for all the bills. Water, internet, heat, gas, electricity. This month, the electric bill alone is $150. It's 6,000, no, what is it? Yeah, 6,000 hryvnia. Night Flip. Your 12th wedding anniversary. Well, happy anniversary. That's the difference, Matthew, right? Once again, a brave Russian building intercepts a Pantsir anti-aircraft missile. Or rocket. I guess technically they're rockets. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much. Thanks to everybody that makes it all possible. And make it a great day. Have a pleasant tomorrow. Take care.